Brian is a wonderful speaker, and he really does a good job. He's a believer. Everything he says, you know that he's really feeling it.
Brian is a very engaging person. He's very credible, he's professional, and he's a good communicator, which really helps.
Before we can talk about changing our culture, we've got to change how we think.
That's the third time I've seen this presentation. I just take notes every time, learn something new every time.
I was taking notes the whole time about ideas that I can incorporate with my teams and the people that I work with on a daily basis.
My presentation is centered around practical, hands-on ideas that audience members can apply the day they get back to bring their company's culture to a whole new level. It's fast-paced, it's fun, it's engaging, and I interact with the audience. I draw them in, I'll ask them questions, I'll get their input. I take time to talk to my host, to learn about the audience, and to customize the presentation to the needs of that audience.
He delivers it with a sense of passion, which keeps you involved.
His leadership style is through demonstration, and he has taken what should be done and given examples and made it very attainable.
Don't leave your opinion leaders, your frontline managers, your frontline employees out. You've got to bring them in. The real action of any presentation happens when the speaker and the audience get to interact. So I don't do canned presentations, I don't like canned presentations. Everything is tailored to your audience.
We like to pride ourselves on our culture, and one of the reasons that I like to hear Brian speak is that he talks a lot about company culture and how important that is to him.
Culture is nothing more than the convergence of people and process working in harmony.
He connects on a personal level because he's not sharing a philosophy that he has, he's sharing best practices that have worked for his organization.
His leadership principles apply across all industries.
You want me to be safe or productive? One or the other. That's a bunch of bull. It's both. Because if we're not productive, we're out of business. Then we'll be really safe because we'll never run another truck. I'm not there to lecture them. I'm not there to give them theoretical advice. I'm there to give them hands-on ideas, tangible value. Going through the same experience as them gives me a unique way and a unique ability to understand and relate to the audience. I like to put them to work. I like them to take the ideas, internalize them, and own them. You've got to focus on easy to implement, high-value ideas.
The real question to ask is, who are you when no one's looking? And Brian Fielkow is the real deal. Outstanding presentation, outstanding message, and he should be on the road every week sharing it with corporate leadership around the world.
I thank you so much, and I wish you all the best as you lead people safely. Thank you. I'm going to give you 6 principles that I think you can operationalize immediately to help create a healthy safety culture. The first is tear down the silos. Don't mistake departments for silos. Departments are necessary. We have to have departments inside of our company so that we can keep our functions manageable and bite-sized. Silo is a mentality. Silo is a way of thinking. As long as my company and my little silo is doing well, I don't care about yours. I'll use the example that, if my division is making $1 million a year, and Hubert, if yours is losing $2 million a year, I'm just okay, aren't I? Because I'm making the $1 million. No. What is the bank going to say? The bank doesn't care if one division made $1 million. What the bank cares is how the overall entity is doing. That's what the shareholders care about. But if I don't care enough about your division to help you turn it around, maybe I can help you, that's a silo. And, in our company, we've done a lot to tear down the silos because I've heard people complain about silos. Oh, they exist and they're terrible. Well, did you ever think about how the silos got there? They got there because we built them. Now, we didn't intentionally form a silo building committee, but we built them unintentionally. So a great example is functionally segregated meetings. I will not have a sales meeting without operations people there. So don't think about a sales meeting as a sales meeting, because the last thing I want to do is hear salespeople talk about, we work so hard to write this business and that operations team just can't service it. And the last thing I want to hear about is the operations team saying, well, if those salespeople only knew how to write good accounts. Now, look, I know that doesn't happen in the real world, does it? Every day. But if we have an operations meeting here and a sales meeting here, what have we done? Nothing. Who you invite to the table? Bonus plans that only look at individual behavior, right? Your bonus is going to depend on how you do. Well, we're really producing a lot of solo athletes there. The best bonus plan I've ever seen says, look, you can win, you can earn up to 100 points. 40 is how you do individually, 40 is how your team does, and 20 is the profitability of the company. And there's a cliff at 80. If you get below 80, no bonus. So profitability can pull the plug. But the whole idea is that if you get 40 points for being a strong individual performer and you're a cancer on the team, no go. You're going to get paid, rewarded, promoted, and recognized for being an individual performer and a team player. It's not either or. But if all I'm doing is paying you and promoting you on your team performance, on your individual performance, and then you're not acting like a team player, why am I surprised? I created it. All you're doing is operating in it. Second principle I want you to think about is know who has the power. See, we mix up power and authority. Now, I may have a certain amount of authority because of my role in the company. Can I have your name? Nina. All right. I can send everybody a memo right now that says, Nina has this level of authority. She's our director of operations. Here's her job description. Okay, we can all understand that. But the real power comes from the leaders in your front line. Can I send a memo to any one of you that says, ladies and gentlemen, Nina is now a leader. Congratulations. That's ridiculous. I can't. Nina is going to become and be regarded in your company as a leader because of how she shows up. It doesn't matter what her title is. She might be a manager, she might be a senior executive, and she might be a frontline employee. Leadership has nothing to do with authority. How many managers have you all worked for that are absolutely terrible leaders? And how many leaders do you know in your company that had no title? That's the difference. When I ask you, who are your opinion leaders? Because your opinion leaders are the ones that have the power in your organization. They're the ones that the rest of the company goes to when there are questions. Now, whether or not you have opinion leaders is not your choice. You do. The issue is whether your opinion leaders are working for you or against you. And in a business, whether you're talking about transportation, manufacturing, whether you're in fast food, a lot of times your frontline opinion leaders are not physically with the other folks in the office. In my company, if we have a lot of drivers on the yard, that's no bueno. We got to get them out, right? You're separated by your job. But you've got to capture your opinion leaders. You've got to bring them in. We're going to talk about this on the panel a little bit because we asked our drivers to tear down that driver office silo to elect a driver committee. And the chair of our driver committee has now become a full-time employee in our company as a driver advocate. So what we did is we brought our opinion leaders in. Don't leave your opinion leaders, your frontline managers, your frontline employees out. Now, as we engage our front lines, I want you to think about this. It's critical that you build an internal brand. Okay, we spend a lot of money marketing, branding to the outside, to our customers. That's great. This is our internal brand at Jetco. It's called Driving to Perfection. If my customers see it, fine. But that's not what this is for. This is a visual affirmation of your values. Let's face it. Put up a sign with your values and your mission statement in the conference room. How many times are your frontline managers and frontline employees in the conference room? They're not. And how many times do people read it? But if this is on every screensaver, if it's on every forklift, if it's on every piece of equipment you've got, if it's on all of your your company-issued equipment, it means something. You better be able to stop any one of my drivers, maybe all but the newest, and say, what does that mean? And they should, within some range, be able to say it means we don't compromise safety. It means we don't compromise our values. Don't spend your time on the 800-page handbooks. Spend your time on things like this that work. And then take that brand and morph it into safety brands. Stop, think, observe, proceed. A lot of people still ready, fire, aim. No, call a timeout. I'm the key. That's a brand about accountability. And the bottom one is my favorite because there's this age-old perception. Hey, boss, what do you want? You want me to be safe or productive? One or the other. That's a bunch of bull. It's both. Because if we're not productive, we're out of business. Then we'll be really safe because we'll never run another truck. So whatever it takes, safe and on time. It's not an either-or proposition. It's a both proposition. You're hiring employees. You're not hiring mind readers. This is in the book, so don't worry about writing it down. But one page culture contract. You sign the culture contract on the person's first day with your rules of engagement. This is not something you hire a lawyer for, with all due respect to the attorneys in this room. This is to tell your employees, these are the rules that we follow. You may be the best welder in the world from another company, but you may not know how to weld the way that we do it here. You may not know that welding without a mask will get you fired. Okay? So in other words, you define what should be in the culture contract, but one page only, and these are the rules of engagement. You take away the excuse, nobody told me, I didn't know. And then, by the way, we're all human, so we are going to all violate these. And the first thing we better pull out of the file is this and say, you remember on the first day you signed this? Well, we had a bad week. Can I trust you to get back in line? I knew I could. And if not, then we have a decision about an exit, right? See, because we live in an era where there's this revolving door where one person could have 30 jobs in their career. Now, somebody stopped me and said, what do you mean? What if somebody gives their entire career to the company and then they retire? That's not what I'm talking about. If somebody's given a meaningful portion of their career to the company, of course you celebrate that. But what I'm saying is if somebody's been there for a year or two, if the team wants to go out for a couple drinks or pizza, let them. But we're not sponsoring that. Put your money into building the bridge, not into celebrating the bridge that was burned. So what we do now for every new hire is for all the September hires, they're going to get a letter personally signed by our company's president, Kyle Kristenik, welcoming them to Jetco. $50 gift card to a restaurant chain here saying celebrate joining Jetco with a friend or a loved one. How many times does that happen? How many? We get people saying, "Wow, this is my 35th job," and it's never happened from the president of the company. It's a great use of U.S. mail. It's one of the few uses left for U.S. mail because you don't want to just get to the employee. You want to get to his or her family too. Put your money into saying hello, building the bridge, not burning the bridge. Take accountability and break it into 3 parts. Okay, and we can talk about this more at the break. But I want you to think about individual accountability, organizational accountability, and peer-to-peer. There's 3 distinct flavors of accountability. And in my mind, what we do too often is we blame the person whose hands are on the wheel, whose hands are on the lever. Individual accountability. Individual accountability happens when a properly trained person knows what to do and does otherwise. That's his or her fault. That's individual accountability. But a lot of times what we do is we blame that person and we mask underlying problems inside the company. That's organizational accountability. If the processes aren't understood, if we have a Nike just do it attitude in a safety sensitive business, that's the fault of the company. You know how sometimes we've got, that person in that chair that we hired somebody else and we fired them 6 months later, and then we hired somebody else and we fired 6 months later. We have to get better at hiring. No, we don't. We have to get better at explaining our process. We have to get better at training, because if you have that many people in that chair, it's probably not that you're that bad at hiring, it's that there's something wrong in the process that has to be fixed. We as organizations have to segregate and differentiate between whether we have a problem with individual accountability, organizational, or both. And then, we can all get up and leave once we get peer-to-peer accountability right. Peer-to-peer accountability is simply meaning it's not just okay, but it's required for peers to hold each other accountable. If one of your employees on the plant floor is doing something unsafe, who's going to see it first? You in your office or a peer working right next to them? Well, the answer is obvious. But the problem with peer-to-peer accountability, it goes back to when we were little kids. I'm not going to say anything because you're not the boss of me, right? You're not the boss of me. You got to have an environment where peer-to-peer accountability is promoted, where people know it's okay. If somebody says shut up, it's none of your business. That's the problem. The problem is not somebody looking out for their coworker. I want to make one more comment here on handbooks. I'll sometimes make fun of handbooks. I know they're necessary. You have to have handbooks. Here's the problem. The average American reads at what level? 7th grade, 8th grade level? Fourth? We're going backwards here, Lee.
My daughter's a 6th grade teacher. It really is the 4th grade level.
Your daughter's a 6th grade teacher, and we're reading at the 4th grade level. And these frickin' handbooks are written at the collegiate level. And then the employees don't understand them, and we wonder why. That's crazy. Let your team write the handbook. Our handbook, I don't have it here. I'm glad to show you a couple chapters. But it's called the Jetco Way. They were written by cross-functional groups, drivers, customer service, dispatch. And then we had somebody in each room, in each group, that was a good writer, so that we didn't have to have people write perfectly. We didn't care about that. What we cared about was getting the best practices on paper. And who knows the best practices? Your front-line employees. We're coming back to the same theme here, folks. It's capturing the knowledge that's in your room. We in the boardroom are not the smartest guys. In fact, sometimes I feel like we're the absolute dumbest guys in the room. Let your front lines write the handbook. Everything's in a paragraph. It's supported by pictures. The only excuse for not understanding it now is that you didn't read it. The last thought I've got for you is this. I love this quote by Sir Isaac Newton. And it says, if I've seen further than others, it's by standing on the shoulders of giants. Every one of us in this room got to where we are, the privilege of being in this room, by standing on other people's shoulders. Parents, teachers, coaches. We all got to where we are by standing on somebody else's shoulders. None of us got here on our own, with just our own effort, nobody's help. But what you've got to realize now, figuratively and literally, is that every one of you has hundreds or thousands of people standing on your shoulders right now, needing you to lead them safely. Never forget that calling, that duty, and that privilege that you have now to impact positively the lives of your employees, the lives of your customers, and the lives of your public. And with that, I thank you so much, and I wish you all the best as you lead people safely. Thank you.